VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. It's a little tricky to do a show like this, believe it or not, when you're right in the thick of legal tampering. Because while I'm recording here, the Vikings might sign somebody else or have a Cousins verdict. But nevertheless, in hopefully about 8 minutes or so, I'm going to introduce you to the newest edge rusher for these Vikings, Jonathan Greenard from the Houston Texans. This is a big deal. The guy is 26, going to turn 27. So now you can reduce some of that pass rushing anxiety or defensive anxiety about what the heck are they going to do if Danielle Hunter walks. They have one part of it figured out, assuming this guy doesn't back out on the deal or something wonky like that. The good part is overall, you have one side of the line is now taken care of, and perhaps Danielle Hunter comes back. Although some of the NFL powers that be claim that he's going to seek the open market to figure out if he can find a bigger contract. But as of now, right away, this is the biggest crazy free agent signing probably at all. Scanning my memory bank here, Harrison Phillips was a big deal. This is probably the biggest Quasi signing to date, which makes sense because this was the biggest piggy bank he could use in his 3 off seasons to date. We have a PFF score last year for Jonathan Greenard of 78.2 with 12 and a half sacks, and that was in 15 games. Close your ears on this one. The only knock on him to date is injury history. It's not as bad as Marcus Davenport, but he hasn't played a full season yet, and he has been a part of the league now for 4 seasons. So we shall hope that changes with these Vikings. But on the whole, let's talk a little bit about what this does. We knew going into this offseason that the Vikings had 0 starting edge rushers on the books, unless you consider Patrick Jones and Andre Carter big breakout candidates for this spring and summer. So something needed to happen, and probably in free agency, either you re-sign Danielle Hunter or you find a guy like Greenard. And that's what they did. We don't know the Hunter verdict. Hopefully that arrives today. Hopefully he stays with the Vikings, although it feels less likely with this Greenard edition. But they have one hard part out of the way. Often in the last 2 years, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was criticized for his first free agent signing of each cycle being a non-premium position, whether that was Harrison Phillips at defensive tackle or last year Josh Oliver, the head scratcher for a lot of people at tight end. Well, this one isn't like that at all. This is edge rusher, one of the most important parts of football. Maybe up there second now behind quarterback. So you can slice any reservations you have about the 2024 Vikings defense in half at the edge rusher spot. They can either add another guy, whether that is, somebody like Jadeveon Clowney, like a veteran pass rusher, re-sign Hunter, or use the draft if they're going to use the 11th pick on somebody like Jared Verse from Florida State or Dallas Turner, my guy, if they go edge rusher from Alabama. This one really makes it so you have some options. You don't have to stare at the ledger and say, oh my God, it's just Patrick Jones or Andre Carter. But now I want to talk about the value. This is the best part of the Jonathan Greenard signing. So we have already seen, whether it was Chris Jones on Saturday night or that guard for, who was it, Landon Dickerson for the Eagles, got $21 million as an offensive guard. I said it on this show a few days ago, and it feels like it's reality now, that this Vikings free agency feels like the 2016 NBA summer, where guys like Timothy Mozgov and Luol Deng were getting ginormous contracts. Well, thankfully for the Vikings' sake, Jonathan Greenard at 4 years, $76 million, $19 million per season is not like that one iota. How come? Well, first of all, you're getting a guy who banked 12 and a half sacks in 15 games and who ranked near the top of all of the pressure metrics towards the last half of the season. So you're looking for a guy they signed a guy who's looking to break out into, pure stardom, and that's going to happen with the Vikings, or at least that's the plan. So at $19 million per year, where Hunter's probably going to get 25 or north of that, there is a lot of value, and he's 3 years younger than Hunter, which is a big damn deal. Not that I had any real crazy reservations about Hunter slowing down. But if Hunter does not come back, you turn back the clock 3 years while you seek that other pass rushing solution, whether it is the rookie or a free agent, that it might even be announced by the time I'm done recording this episode. So the value is there. By the time we get to next year, I'm going to guess the cap goes up again. We're going to stare at the Vikings salary cap and say, gosh, remember we got Jonathan Greenard for $19 million? That was really sweet. You might recall in 2018 when the Vikings, with Rick Spielman, when they signed Danielle Hunter, God, what was that? I don't even remember how much that was, but it was a 5-year deal. And it was one of the best contracts the Vikings had ever signed. And one of the only football contracts I can remember the guy just going all the way through. So I don't know if Greenards will be quite like that, but the value is there because edge rushers' price will continue to escalate. And right now he's on the books for $19 million. So I don't know any Vikings fan that was dismayed by this signing. If there's any of that where you're like, I don't know if I like this, it's probably attached to the sentimental value of Hunter possibly leaving. You can pretty much put it in your heart of hearts that Greenard getting signed increases the chances of Hunter going elsewhere. I will not rule out a reunion because I keep saying the Vikings would have traded Hunter last year if they didn't want him. But the guy, let's face it, has hit the open market. And if this is similar to the Kirk Cousins situation where the Vikings have a number, they're firm on it, they've slid the offer over to him and say, take it or leave it, then Hunter could, fetch $26 million or so from the Jaguars or the 49ers. You pick his next employer. He's going to get that money from somewhere. We shall see if it's the Vikings. And all of this is while we remain on Kirk Cousins, watch, waiting for the verdict. He said last night, or at least through channels, said that he was going to test free agency. Well, we're in the here and now. He's reportedly chatting with the Falcons. And this really feels like a premier day in Vikings history in terms of this is like a pivotal foundational moment. Does Cousins come back? If he does not, then they're going to be thrust into action and drafting a quarterback of the future to replace Cousins. And so, yeah, we're all just on Cousins watch. I tweeted right around 10:30 that the moves that would happen, like Greenard or also Blake Brandel and David Quesenberry, were re-signed as offensive line depth pieces. It felt like waiting on new players was actually a footnote of free agency, which was really weird because usually, Cousins is in the saddle or we're pretty sure of it. And then you're waiting to see like, who are they going to get in free agency? Well, today and still right now, Greenard signing is kind of a footnote to the grand climax for Cousins contract and then Hunter. And we know that Justin Jefferson's deal will arrive at some point, hopefully this offseason. Don't monkey around with that any longer. But yes, Jonathan Greenard from the Houston Texans, right in the prime of his career. That's another sweet factoid about it. He will be on one side of the Vikings defensive line, and we're waiting to figure out if it will be Hunter, somebody like Jadeveon Clowney, just an example of a veteran pass rusher who won't utterly break the bank. Or if they re-sign Cousins, then they could reasonably use that 11th pick. Not don't trade up for an edge rusher. You could probably get organically at number 11 my guy Dallas Turner or other people's guy Jared Verse. But Jonathan Greenard to the Vikings, 4 years, $76 million at wonderful value. We'll want to make sure that he finally plays a full season. And that's all I got on Greenard. The PFF numbers are there. He equitably stops the run and the pass, which is pretty sweet. A lot of those pass rushers are one-trick ponies like Yannick Ngakoue, guys like that. Greenard isn't like that. He stops the run as well. All right, that's all we got for this edition. Welcome, Jonathan Greenard, to the Vikings. And I'm going to guess we'll be back at some point soon with the Cousins news. Skol, baby.